If someone were to ask you what color Alice's dress is right now, what would you say? If you said blue, you'd be with the majority. However, Alice's dress has had more colors than a rainbow at this point, so really it's a complicated question with a lot of history. So let's get into it. This is the entire history of Alice's dress. And what color is it? Really? It all started July 4th, 1862, when Lewis Carroll took Alice Little and her sisters out on the riverbank with his friend Robinson Duckworth. Over the 2 years that followed, he wrote and illustrated Alice's Adventures Underground, the original manuscript, featuring this Alice. However, it didn't test well, so he decided to hire a real illustrator instead. And he ended up hiring the famous cartoonist Sir John Tenniel through a connection at Punch magazine. Now partnered with Tenniel, they got the book published in 1865. However, it's all black and white, so we still can't tell what color the dress is. But our first inclination of the color was actually prior to the publication in his preliminary sketches. In this illustration right here, you can very faintly see that he colored the hair blonde and the dress blue. Some of the very first reinterpretations of Alice were actually done by Tenniel himself in the aforementioned Punch magazine. But they were all inspired by his design, so they didn't really reinvent the wheel. The first colored images of Alice and her dress did not appear in books, but actually in other merchandise products. For example, we have the cover of the Wonderland Quadrilles, sheet music published around 1872. Here they show Alice's dress as actually a kind of rusty red. It was actually done by lithographer Alfred Kincannon, but the designs are after Tenniel's and was approved by both Tenniel and Carroll. 1875 saw the first Dutch translation of Alice, which came with 7 of Tenniel's illustrations colored for the first time. And this was when she first wore yellow, the second most popular color option after blue. And of course, this color change was also approved by Carroll and Tenniel. The earliest record of someone dressing up as Alice in costume was at the Melbourne Town Ball in September of 1878. It was worn by a woman named Miss Scott, and it was blue, making it the first blue Alice dress besides the one in Tenniel's sketchbook. There aren't any photos of this, however, thanks to cutting-edge technology, here is a super realistic rendering of what she would have looked like. In 1886, we got the first professional stage production of Alice, where she wears a white dress for the first time. The very following year, in 1887, we get the second Dutch translation by Eleanor Mann, which also features her in a white dress. In 1889, The Nursery Alice was published, featuring Tenniel's illustrations, slightly varied and colored. Tons of people think this is where the yellow dress originates, but it's actually from the 1875 Dutch edition, which might have been the inspiration for its return. Later that year, he made a postage stamp case of her in yellow, as well as a card deck in 1894. But right between in 1892, he supervised some biscuit tins of her back in blue. In 1893, Thomas Cromwell published an Alice edition featuring a single-colored frontispiece of her back in blue. But now here's where things get tricky going forward. The 1880s saw the golden age of illustration begin, and it quickly caught on to Alice. Around the turn of the century, Alice books started popping up more and more, and with it the idea of what an Alice dress could be. So join me next time where we'll get through the rest of Alice's dresses, and hopefully answer the question of what color her dress really is. Unless I have too much and I have to do a part 3. Sorry.